you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to LaFleur.
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement, et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Coupe Stanley pour les Canadiens, le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup!
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Vida TV. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Marinaro on this Monday, December 2nd. I hope you're all well. Thank you for watching us on YouTube Live right now. And thank you for watching us on Facebook Live as well. If you're watching live, of course, it is 3 minutes past 10 p.m. Eastern on this Monday, December 2nd. It is the anniversary of Patrik Laine's final game with the Montreal Canadiens. Who can forget that when he was in goal for 9 Detroit Red Wings goals. 9 Detroit Red Wings goals. The Sick Podcast brought to you in part by Energy Transportation Group, a leading full-service logistics provider serving all of North America, driven to be different. Also brought to you in part by Playground. I was there on Saturday night. Step into the world-renowned poker experience at Playground, where free food and drinks at cash game tables, a bad beat jackpot, weekly promotions, daily tournaments, unmatched customer service await you. Why play anywhere else? Just minutes from downtown Montreal, across the Mercier Bridge. Playground. By the way, I was at the Etc. restaurant, and I had myself a beautiful, delicious New York strip, 12-ounce, with a lobster tail and an all-dressed baked potato with calamari as an entree. Fantastic. And brought to you in part by Bittt Tibi. They launched their new Ultra Lager, a refreshing, thirst-quenching beer, perfect for the cool fall days. Only 90 calories, 2 grams of carbs, 4% ABV per can, available in a pack of 6 and 12 in grocery stores all around the province of Quebec. It's ultra light and ultra refreshing. Without further ado, let me bring him in. He is from Sportsnet and Sportsnet.ca. Eric Engels, what's going on?
Not much, man. What's going on with you?
I talked about Patrik Laine's last game as a Montreal Canadien, December 2nd, 1995. And I think it's pretty cool that his New York Islanders visit the Montreal Canadiens tomorrow night. We will talk about that a little bit later. Of course, Eric, I am not on Saturdays or Sundays, and the Canadiens played an afternoon game on Saturday at 1 p.m., an afternoon game in Boston on Sunday at 3 p.m., which I think the puck probably dropped at around 4:15 in the afternoon after all the ceremonies. 2 games, 2 losses for the Canadiens. Let's start with the first game on Saturday. And coming from a guy who has given it to Josh Anderson quite a bit in the last year and a half or so, I love what Josh did. Josh basically went up to Jacob Trouba and he said to him, what you did to Justin Barron for me is not acceptable. He's my teammate. I love him. And now you're going to have to pay the price. And pay the price he did. Josh is a big man and he's a strong man. When Josh gets upset, he can beat anyone. Ask Jacob Trouba and ask Tom Wilson before him. So, Mr. Anderson, I have talked about you and I have talked about a lack of pride on many occasions. You've shown me that this year you've bounced back. You probably don't have the amount of goals that you'd want to have after 24 games or the amount of points that you'd want to have, but you're working hard. You're trying. Every line you've been on has been a very consistent line. You defend your teammates. That's all I can ask.
Yeah, I don't, I would agree with you. You'd like to see him finish a few more of the chances that he gets because he's creating them and they're being created for him too. And I think it'll come. But honestly, his game is beyond reproach so far this season. In a season that's not going well for the Canadiens, he's been one of the brighter spots and good for him. He took so much shit last year. He never ran away from it. He never hid from it. He talked about it a lot. It was a very difficult year for him. And it was difficult mentally. It was difficult physically. And for him to come back the way he has, with the attitude that he has about the role that he's in, and bring it every night. The consistency has absolutely been there. Definitely one of the better stories so far this year.
I came out with a pretty big statement earlier today on the radio on BPM Sports on my radio show Le Forum, which goes weekdays between 9:55 a.m. and 11:55 a.m. If you haven't listened to it yet, 91.9 on your FM dial in Montreal. And of course, you can check out the BPM Sports YouTube channel or their bpmsports.ca website or their BPM Sports application. And I said it was one of those games where I watched and I said to myself, it just seems like the refs are trying to give the New York Rangers every opportunity to win games. It caught a lot of people's attention because it made it sound like I was saying the fix is in, and I probably was. But look, I was stretching it. I was exaggerating, obviously. But you know what? I felt that way watching the game from my house. I felt like the Rangers had lost. By no means am I saying it's fixed, but hear me out. I felt like the Rangers had lost 5 games in a row. It's a Saturday afternoon game in New York, and the Rangers are getting some calls, and the Canadiens aren't. And I just thought it was a little bit too much. I mean, Josh Anderson's roughing call, that's probably the worst penalty that I've seen called this year. That was awful. And that game-winning goal, 5 or 6 seconds before the puck comes in, Yoel Armia is clearly tripped. And you have to think that the referees saw it. I mean, the puck was going to him. And I thought the Canadiens, unfortunately, did not get the benefit of the calls on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, listen, I don't think it was intended to necessarily be one-sided, but it turned out that way. There was misses on both sides. Jack, I should have gotten a penalty for that hit on Lafreniere. He was late, and he missed him completely and ended up clipping him. The Anderson call for roughing, and I was at the game. Like, I was having the same reaction as you. It was just ridiculous watching it. It was an absurd shit show. Like, and from 2 veteran officials who have reffed in combined 12 Stanley Cup finals and had like 2,300 games of experience between them. Francis Charon and what am I blanking on? Kelly Sutherland. I was sitting there watching the game going like, what the hell are these guys doing? Like, they missed that Jack I called. They missed the cross check from Kreider on Anderson. Anderson didn't like that and gave them some lip. He ends up getting called for roughing a few minutes later without the officials being available to explain anything, because the NHL doesn't make them available and they don't make the supervisors available. It seemed very clear to me that penalty for roughing was assessed because Anderson was jawing at the refs earlier. The Rangers end up scoring on that one.
That's so wrong, by the way. It's so wrong, but it's probably true.
The Yoel Armia trip, before we even get there, I mean, that 11-person melee, including Jonathan Quick, like Kirby Dach starts the entire thing, doesn't end up with a penalty. They give 2 penalties to Slavkovsky. The NHL is so confused, they assess them to Jack-Eye. The refs are both wearing microphones. It took them 10 minutes to sort out that situation, and neither of them went to announce the penalties after they assessed 6 guys' penalties. And the Rangers end up with a power play out of it, which was absolutely absurd.
Yeah.
And I could tell you, the supervisor, Dvorsky, was there, and in between periods, he was in the box with Jeff Gorton and Kent Hughes, and the door was closed. I couldn't tell you what was being said, but it seemed like a pretty animated scene to me. And then, that penalty on Armia, whether they saw it or chose to let it go, it wasn't just like, oh, he tripped him. He literally swept him off his feet.
Oh, yeah.
Cooley.
Oh, yeah.
And that's Will Cooley, who ends up in front of the net and makes the play
to set up Kakko
to win the game. And I'll tell you, I have never seen Jeff Gorton is a very mild-mannered, calm dude. He's definitely very passionate about the team, wants them to win, does not like seeing them lose, especially as frequently as they have this year. I've never seen him so pissed off as Saturday as we were standing in the elevator and he was making his way towards it. Like, he was irate. And I just thought...
Do you have a chance to talk to him?
No, you leave people alone.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Yeah, you saw the smoke coming out of his ears. I get it. Yeah,
It was a pretty public display of the smoke coming out of his ears. I'm not going to lie. I wasn't the only one who saw it. And I don't blame him. I thought the Canadiens had every right to be furious about the way that game went down, especially with the effort they put in. And despite the way the game was being called, being able to manage to even it up at 3-3 in the third period, the effort was unquestionably one of their better ones of the season. They deserved at least a point out of that game. They probably deserved to win it, considering that power play goal came with Anderson in the box. I was really happy post-game, and I'm going to tell you why. I don't like to write columns about officiating. It sounds like whining from a reporter of a given team, and then you get called a homer and this shit.
The power play goal, you mean with Doc in the box?
No, I'm talking about the extra. Doc earned his penalty, but there's an extra goal that gets scored because Josh Anderson serving a minor that a penalty he didn't earn.
Yeah.
Anyways, I don't like to write about officiating, and it wasn't my plan to write about officiating that night. And I can't tell you how happy I was when we got into a 70-second scrum with Martin St. Louis, and he handled it the way he did, and everybody saw it by now. I loved everything about our game, and I'm not going to talk about the refs. And he repeated it over. It didn't matter what the question was. It didn't matter if the question was about Kirby Doc. It didn't matter what the question was. I didn't ask. It might have been the first time since St. Louis came in here that I didn't ask a question at a post-game conference at a game that I was at, because I was just sitting there laughing. And I was laughing because I was thinking to myself, I don't have to write about another good effort from the Canadiens that gets spoiled one way or the other. And, like this column is becoming repetitive. What I'm going to write about is St. Louis doesn't want to talk about it, but I want to. And the people who should really be talking about it are the officials themselves, not just after this game, but after every game.
Well, St. Louis didn't want to talk about it, but he wanted to.
Well, he said what he had to say.
Yeah,
he said what he had to say.
He took a page out of Torch's book. He took a page out of Torch's book.
I thought it was brilliant. It was a brilliant tactic, but it opened the door for me to write about something different. And what I wrote is that in the NFL, they have a pool reporter. One guy collects questions from the people who are covering that game.
Mm-hmm.
And he has a little meeting with the officials after the game and said, hey, can you explain this call or that? Everyone, the idea is not to put the officials on trial here. The idea is to get some clarifications on things and allow them the opportunity to own a missed call or a bad call. So the accountability that would enable a certain level of forgiveness from the people who watch these games and the people who play in them, because everybody else has to face that. We face it when we write our stuff and talk about it on the air. The players face it when they play their game, and the coach faces it after every game, and the GM and the president of the club. Everybody in this game and in professional sports has to deal with this. MLB does the same thing as NFL, by the way. I'm not exactly sure what the protocol is in NBA, but I just think there's got to be some sort of accountability. And apparently a lot of people agreed with me because I got a lot of response to that column that I wrote. But I was happy after the game that I have to write about, another spoiled effort for the Canadiens, because that one's getting pretty repetitive. And Marty opened up the door for me to step right through and write what I did. And so it was an entertaining afternoon for me.
Yeah, Marty wanted to criticize the refs without criticizing them. He wanted to humiliate the refs without saying anything. He wanted to ridicule the refs without saying anything. And he wanted to get his message across to the National Hockey League without getting a fine. And he did it perfectly.
He did it perfectly. And just for some insight, okay, you have to realize every time Martin St. Louis speaks post-game, we're in the room speaking to the players. As we're in the room speaking to the players, Marte is in a separate room with the coaches, and Jeff Gorton and Kent Hughes and John Sedgwick will come down into that room, and they'll debrief on the game. And you just knew after seeing Gorton after the game that Marty was coming out of that. And when he started talking, it was very clear what the messaging was in that room. And I'm not saying Marty was directed to say what he said. I don't think that's the case at all. You could tell that him coming out of that debrief, they were all on the same page about how that one went. And you know what? Josh Anderson said before the Boston game, that was one pissed off hockey team that you were going to see in the afternoon in Boston, which is kind of what made what happened in the end such a disappointment in terms of how the Canadiens, I'm going to call it one of their worst games, but the lapses in judgment and the mistakes they made are just to fall back into those habits after such a good effort in New York. And I know Boston was rested and they had this centennial buzz and all that, but it's just, I wrote something about that game, Tony. I don't know if you saw it, and this is what I said. The Canadiens are a young team. It's been acknowledged they're the second youngest team in the league. We have given that as much air as needs to be given to give a reason for why they have these inconsistencies. But they have given us no reason, nobody, any justification to suggest they're anything other than a bad team, because bad teams do the things that they have been doing.
Yes.
And until they're able to prove something different, they're going to wear that label. And
they're bad, Eric. I mean, they're 31 out of 32 teams in the National Hockey League. Their winning percentage is 31 out of 32 teams in the National Hockey League. Their minus 25 goal differential is 31 out of 32 teams in the National Hockey League. Their shots per game at 24 shots per game is 32 out of 32 teams in the National Hockey League. Their 48.1 face-off percentage is 26 out of 32 teams in the National Hockey League. Their shots against per game, there's only 9 teams that give up more shots per game than the Montreal Canadiens.
Did you memorize this?
No. I take notes, my friend. I take notes.
Nice handwriting too.
Not really.
Back in the day when you used to use a pen.
Thank you. Yeah, I use a Sharpie.
So Tony, all those numbers you just brought up, right? Heavily influenced by the first month of the season. I would tell you that if you took the Boston game out, and if you took the Vegas game out of their last 10, all those categories that you just mentioned, or at least a lot of them, a lot of the underlying numbers, top 10 in the league, including the special teams as well. They haven't generated the results despite a much healthier process, but that's what makes the game in Boston, which is 8 days after the game in Vegas, such a disappointment, because you're falling back into habits that you worked so hard to undo. And
only this time he called the timeout.
Yeah, this time he called the timeout.
He didn't wait for the TV timeout this time.
Look, I don't. And
you think it's possible? You said that. You think it's possible? You said that guy with that curly hair, that those greenish blue eyes, that good-looking guy on the radio. He's probably right every now and then. Maybe I should listen to him. You don't think so?
I don't think it's that, but I'm. I think you weren't the only one probably banging that drum. But I'll tell you this:
he actually, by the way, did you see this? Pardon me. I think he calls the third most timeouts in the league. By the way. I think it's called the third most timeouts in the league. I saw that stat on the weekend.
You know what? It makes sense because they have to be in the top 3 for second most. Okay, says producer Shane, second most.
Second most, yeah.
So that adds up, because who else is trailing more late in the game than the Montreal Canadiens are? Yeah. But I will say this: Martin sees the value in his team correcting itself, and if I were him, I would want to see that happen much more often and want to give that an opportunity, especially based on where we're at now, right? Because this season, what it was about beforehand has changed now. Now it's, the tone is much more, let's get the process to where it needs to be. Let's try and win more games than we lose. We've heard the players say that. We've heard Martin say it. At the end of the day now, this team has to take ownership of itself. The best teams and the teams that develop into the best teams are the ones that run themselves. And of course, Marty's got a job to do. He's got to continue evolving as a coach. He's got to make different decisions night in, night out. But at the end of the day, if this team is going to actually progress, and I'm not just talking about the on-ice results and this and that, it's going to need to start running itself in a way that holds everybody in the room accountable to a level that we unfortunately definitely didn't see through the first month of the season. We saw a lot more of it through the second month of the season. And now let's see what month 3 brings.
So all kidding aside, every time I called for that timeout after the Canadiens gave up goals quickly, one after the other, and it didn't seem to happen, those timeouts, before the game on Sunday. Marty would say, when he was asked about it, and he hasn't been asked about it too often, that he waited for the TV timeouts, and he likes to keep his timeouts in his back pocket just in case he needs them with 2, 3, 4 minutes left in the game. I think on Sunday, Marty corrected. I think Marty has learned. I think it's a mistake that he didn't call them in certain times this season. I think he learned from his mistakes. I think that's positive. I want to finish off the New York Ranger game by saying this: I don't blame Kirby Dach for the penalty that he took. A lot of guys lose control of their stick, unfortunately. I know he has to have a certain discipline. He was battling for a puck and the offensive zone. He was hungry. He wanted to win a puck battle. He wanted to try to create offense with less than 3 minutes to go in the game. And unfortunately for him, when it rains, it pours.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing's going right for him right now. Picks up the penalty. But I'll say this. I don't blame him. I think fans that have messaged him are stupid. But I will say this. I know that some people can view Marty starting Kirby Dach for the game on Sunday as that's great. It's a vote of confidence. You know, Kirby Dach is down. He's trying to pick him up. I'm not so sure I would have done that. And no, I'm not a coach, and no, I'm not qualified to be one. But at the end of the day, even though I don't blame Kirby at all, even though it's nice for some players to look and say, oh, you know what? Look, that's good. He's still got confidence in the kid. I think others could probably view it and say, you know, we have a player who took a penalty at the wrong time. We end up losing the game, and 24 hours later, he starts. Now, I don't know if the players think that or not. I'm talking to you from the outside.
Yeah.
Easy for me to say in LaSalle, in my basement, right?
Okay.
Not so sure I would have done that.
Well, you're covering an angle, and it's a counterpoint to the reasoning, and it's totally valid to view it that way. First things first, that was a shitty way for him to end a really good game. Like, he actually played well.
Yeah.
And you're right. When it rains, it pours.
He didn't in Boston, though. I liked his effort on Saturday. I didn't like his effort yesterday.
Up and down. But I'll say this. When he came out to start the game, and I'm sure his teammates were happy to see it happen, they're behind him 100%. There was two things I noticed when that starting lineup came out. That Dach was starting the game, which I thought was a good move from Martin. And they had no issue with their start to the game, by the way, until Primeau allowed a goal that he absolutely shouldn't have allowed after he started the game looking very focused and on task and freezing pucks and not allowing rebounds. That goal, I have no idea what he's reading there. There's no play for McAvoy to make other than to wrap the puck around, and he overshot his post by 3 feet. And gave himself zero chance of getting back to make a save on that play.
Yeah.
Now, Canadians didn't get a stick on it. Anyways, I'm getting sidetracked here. The point I wanted to make on Dach, just on the start, is I thought it was great that Dach was starting the game and Jayden Trouba was starting the game after being scratched. And the coaches who, and he was very tough. I have not seen Marty as... People complained about the things he said about Jack-Eye earlier on this season. He said it with zero emotion when he was talking about Jack-Eye earlier on the season. When I asked him on Friday after practice about Jayden Trouba and the good actions we see and some of the bad ones and how he can find that middle ground, he looked pissed off answering those questions about Jayden Trouba and the fact that his floor is not where it should be and that he's got to play with a certain level of urgency in the little areas of the ice and realize that every play matters. It's maybe it didn't come across through the screen that people might have been watching it, but I was standing right in front of him, and I know Marty pretty well, and he was pissed off about Jayden Strubal's game.
Mm-hmm.
So to say what he said, to scratch him out of Saturday's game, despite the fact that he scored in consecutive games earlier in the week or whatever it was, and then start him in Boston in his hometown to give him a chance to, hey, you know what? I was hard on you. Now go out and I'm going to give you a chance. I'm going to let you play. You're going to play with Cayden Primeau and you're going to play. These are good elements of coaching for me. This is stuff that I think you should do. And I don't think anybody on that bench was saying, well, Kirby cost us they didn't view it as Kirby costing them the game on Saturday. And I'm sure they were happy to see him on the ice.
But Marty was the first one in the organization last year at the end of the season, final game versus Detroit, to say that the goal for this year was to be in the mix. Mm-hmm. And then we get to the golf tournament and everyone says it, right? Jeff Molson says it, Gorton says it, Hughes says it, and Marty says it again. You know, I watched some of the decisions. So
they're not there anymore, though.
So I get it. So I watched some of the decisions. But I mean, the season's far from over. I mean, they've played 24 games. There's still a lot of time.
For sure.
So I told you that I don't agree with that decision to start Dach. It's not the end of the world. I'm not going to lose sleep over it, okay? Mike Matheson turns the puck over to David Pastrnak on the second goal, right? Matheson is like, what did I just do? What did I just do? What I just do? Like, you can tell. Now he's got plenty of experience, so he's had other moments before, but you can tell that he's rattled. It's a big goal for the Bruins. They go up 2-0, and he keeps Matheson on the ice. 15 seconds later, it's 3-0, and Matheson gets hit behind the net, and that's how the puck stays in. 10, 15 seconds later, from the back of the net out in front, Pastrnak shoots, and he scores. And then Matheson is having, he's responsible for the second goal against. He flounders on, or he gets hit to lose the puck on the third goal. They go on that power play early on in the second. He gives up the puck, but he's there again on that power play. And I get it.
He just give up the puck. He was sitting in the slot and passed it back to the position that he should have been in.
So what am I getting at?
Play of the game. I know what you're getting at.
So what I'm getting at is, if the goal was to be in the mix, I find there's some mixed messages. Like Cayden Primeau, you just talked about him, right? He's 75th out of 79 goalies that have played in the National Hockey League this year in goals against average and save percentage. Mm-hmm. Clearly, there is a goalie in Laval that's got a lot better confidence right now and that is stopping pucks at a lot better rate. Mm-hmm. Why isn't he here? If the goal is to be in the mix, why isn't he here?
Where's the best place for him right now?
I know you're going to tell me Laval to play, but you know where the worst place for
Primeau? It's more than Laval. You know where the worst Laval to place.
You know where the worst place for Primeau is right now? Montreal.
Yeah, listen, I think it's more than Laval to play. I think its environment and development opportunity is better there than it is here. I think one contributing factor, and I'm not letting Primeau off the hook for his performance because it's been inconsistent at best and pretty bad at worst, is that you look back at the first few times Primeau got into the net this year, he wasn't given a chance to succeed by the team. Now, yesterday, he didn't give the Canadiens a chance to win.
No,
he just didn't. And I think he's trying to keep a positive mindset. I spoke to him after.
He did in Columbus, by the way. He made a huge save with 30 seconds left.
He did in Columbus. People blew up that performance, saying, okay, finally, he really played well. I thought he played okay. I thought the Canadiens played pretty well in front of him, and so it was a good mix. He gave them a chance to win at least, okay? Which is your job as a backup. It's your job as a goalie, period. And he didn't do his job yesterday. And it's perplexing to me because he started the game with that confidence from the Columbus performance. He was totally in control. I'm not going to blame all the goals on him, but the ones that really hurt the Canadiens, I say he didn't give them a chance, were the ones that he absolutely needs to do better on. Like the McAvoy one, he has got a slight option to shoot short side, but it's pretty well covered if Primeau is just standing there.
Yeah,
he's being forced to the outside. He's got a head of steam. His only play is a fake shot and going around the net and wrapping it, and he overplays the short side shot so much that he gave himself zero chance making a stop. And the real killer after the Canadiens made it 4-1, 21 seconds into 29 seconds, whatever it was, into the third period. The goal that Coyle scores to make it 5-1 Bruins. Like Primeau said on the fourth goal, which he had no chance on, that Pastrnak scored.
Yeah.
It's a breakaway from his own blue line. Like
the fourth one was McAvoy again, was it not?
Yeah, McAvoy, sorry.
Yeah.
A breakaway from his own blue line. You're going to score on that pretty frequently. And Primeau said, you know what? I made the right read on that play and I just couldn't execute the leg save. He did make the right read. He moved in the right direction. He couldn't save it. Who the heck is going to blame him for that?
He's not to blame for that. A breakaway. It's 50-50.
The fifth one, though, where Coyle finds himself alone in front of him, there's no reaction. He gets stuck standing still and doesn't react to the play and doesn't read it. And it was a killer. It was a killer goal to the Canadiens were fighting hard to try and come back in the game, and they made a push in the third period. And interestingly enough, if that goal doesn't go in to make it 5-1 with this Bruins team, which is not exactly soaring with its confidence, maybe Martin would have been upset that he didn't have that timeout to call at some point in that period. Okay.
Yeah.
Primeau's got to be better. And look, you said something that's kind of essential, and it's something that we need to discuss right now. Dobish, best place for him to develop right now is Laval, and not exposed in a situation where his confidence could sink to a place where
I see that.
Primeau, but there's more. There's more, Tony, because you said the goal is to be in the mix. And if the goal is to be in the mix right now, with the way things have gone, I don't think management is going to crater the Canadiens' chances of coming back in their season and doing something more meaningful than what we've seen. But I certainly don't think they're sitting there saying, get the life preservers and throw them on the ice. Like, let's face it, if this team ends up with another top 5 pick at the end of the year, it'll be a disappointment that they've regressed. But and how do they have the best chance of that right now? Like,
management, I agree with you. Management is not going to force anything, even though a lot of fans want to trade yesterday. And by the way, you don't make a trade when you're losing games and your assets don't look good. Okay. But I think they will make trades by the trade deadline. I think Armia will be gone, and I think Dvorak will be gone. And it hurts to say it because everyone loves him as a teammate, but I think that David Savard will be moved as well. Okay. But listen, only time will tell.
Dude, I'm happy. Like, let's just. What do you think his value is going to be? Because honestly, people are ripping into Matheson, who was arguably the best player on the ice in New York and had a brutal game in Boston and completely owned it. Said it was one of the worst games he's ever played. So good for him. I'm sure he'll be better the next one. Nobody said a word on French or English about David Savard this season.
Now,
he's not playing well.
December 2nd. I think he'll probably get you a 3rd round pick. December 2nd.
I don't think so. No, not right now. No, not the way he's playing. I'm sorry. The lack of mobility. Look, I have all the respect in the world for David Savard. Okay, I have tons of respect for him. His willingness to stand in front of shots and block them with regularity, his leadership in the room, his influence on people. This is a guy that, I think has been an awesome contributor to a rebuild and a culture that's being built that a lot of people would poke holes in right now, but honestly is stronger than people think. He has not played well this season. I'm sorry. And nobody has mentioned it. Nobody said a word about it because he's such a great guy and he is a stand-up guy. He has not played well. And he's got to play a lot better. And you know what? There was a little portion in October after a rough start where he really picked it up. And he's got to do it again. Like
he's lost.
His game is nowhere near where it needs to be.
So it's funny. It's funny because he's lost 2 steps, and everybody sees it. Okay, but he played on a Stanley Cup championship team. He's played games in the playoffs. He's a veteran. He's a leader. He blocks shots. He can penalty kill. Maybe call me crazy or call me naive or call me stupid. I think he can get you a 3rd round draft pick. But listen,
who's giving that up for him to play as their 6th defenseman? Who's giving that up? I'm sorry, I don't see it. He would not be more than a 6th on a Stanley Cup contender. And the type of teams that give up for defensemen like David Savard are Stanley Cup contenders because they want that value add on the right side and a guy who plays with the grit and determination and willingness that David Savard has. But David Savard, it's a good thing the trade deadline is not right now because he needs to pick up his game significantly for that payout to be there. And I will tell you that the biggest benefit is that he has a lot of room to build his value back up a little bit, and that the defense market is extremely thin in terms of what will be available come trade deadline for somebody who you'd consider to be a valuable piece of a contender. But they're very lucky that the trade deadline is not right now because I don't think a 3rd round pick would be redeemable for his services right now. And I have all the respect in the world for Savard, and I would have told you that last year, the way he played, I would have thought that they could come close to getting a 1st if he hadn't suffered an injury and been out for a little bit. They didn't want to trade him for just a 2nd round pick at that point because he would have more value to them for another year if he continued playing the same way. He hasn't done that so far. He still has a lot of time to turn around. He's a veteran who's got a lot of pride, but nobody's saying boo about this. And I can't be the only one who's seeing it. Like, I can't be the only one who's seeing the way he struggled this year.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm taking a look at Tampa Bay, third pairing defenseman on the right side.
They could use a name of any kind.
You know, I think they got Nick
Not a lot of
Perbix
people,
right now.
not a lot of the most informed hockey fans in the world that would tell you that they could name all 6 defensemen that are on the Tampa Bay Lightning right now.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Look, let's move on to a lot of really exciting news. All right. But before we do, for those who missed Marty after the Ranger game, I think everyone's heard it by now. But if anyone missed it, I like it, so I want to rehear it again. Let's go.
J'ai adoré notre match, mais je parlerai pas des arbitres.
Qu'est-ce que tu retiens de la façon dont vous êtes revenu en troisième période, particulièrement du travail du premier trio ce soir?
Ah ouais, non, on était là toute la game. J'ai adoré notre match, comme je te dis, mais je parlerai pas des arbitres.
You just did mention them twice. I mean, it's hard to extract them from the results.
I loved our game, but I'm not going to talk about the refs.
À 5 contre 5.
J'ai adoré notre match, je parlerai pas des arbitres.
In terms of, that's a tough break for Kirby, right? I mean, just his game's been coming along, and even tonight, I thought it looked pretty good. Like, was that?
Like I said, I loved everything about our game. I'm not going to talk about the refs.
All right.
By the way, could you hear me kind of snickering in the background, by the way, of that?
Yeah. The second he said it, by the way, there's 2 interviews that Tortorella did in the past that just like I was just thinking about them. All right. Like on Saturday, the second I was watching that, I'm like, oh my God, this reminds me so much of Tortorella. One was when after a game versus the Devils, remember he kept on saying, we know what we did. We know we did. We know what we did. He gave the same answer to every question the way St. Louis was giving the same answer to every question. Right? Correct. And then Larry Brooks said, what did you do? Brooksy, if I wanted to tell you, I would have told you. All right. Okay.
You got him to say something different.
What happened
Larry
to Johnny McLean? You should ask him. Are you not answering any questions? I guess that's what I'm trying to say, Brooksy?
Yeah, that's good.
The other one was when Tortorella, and he's done this before, he was like, listen, guys, I'm not talking about the refs tonight. Guys, I know you're trying to get it out, but I'm not talking about the refs tonight. Guys, listen, you got to stop asking me because I'm not going to talk about the refs tonight. Like in his own way, he did it that way, which I thought was pretty funny too. All right, okay. Patrik Laine goes on his Instagram and he puts up this picture in front of the St. Joseph's Oratory. Big week coming up. Hopefully, Father Andre is a hockey fan. And the Canadiens put this up with Joshua Roy, saying that they have loaned him back to the Laval Rockets. So Roy goes down. He played for the Canadiens on the weekend. By the way, very disappointing performances, I have to say. I just thought he would have gone through the boards, and he didn't. But it looks like Patrik Laine is set to return tomorrow night versus the New York Islanders.
Yeah, I hope we don't have to go through that whole song and dance in the morning of, he's going to be a game time decision, and just make him available to the media before the game and put him in the lineup if we all know that he's going to play. And if he's not, just say he's not going to play. Like the whole song and dance, and we have to wait till warm up, and just so that he won't speak to the media before, it's just like, come on. I think everybody's ready for this. Look, I'm going to say what everybody with a brain has to be thinking about this, right? Like, you see the injury that he suffered. You know that he came to Montreal in August, having skated 3 times in the summer. You looked at training camp and saw that it took him a long time to get up to a speed that was tolerable / acceptable. And that was understandable given how long he was off the ice, given what he went through last year with the injury and going into the program. And so anybody with a brain is looking at this and saying, okay, he's not about to come in and save the Canadiens. But I do want to say this. The Canadiens have 3 games at the Bell Center this week. They're playing tomorrow against
the Islanders.
They're playing Nashville, and they're playing, is it Washington Saturday?
Yes.
What might be a mitigating factor in what should be a slow burn for Patrik Laine, considering everything he's been through, is the couple times we saw him play at the Bell Center, his game level went up considerably. And coming back from a long layoff and the anticipation of playing anybody who's in that situation has a certain level of adrenaline that kicks in right away and usually carries them through the first couple games. And then, as Marty likes to say, they settle into normalcy, and then we'll see how they react. So
yeah, as a matter of fact,
anticipating this
3 this week, Eric, 2 next week. Their next 5 are at the Bell Center.
I think that's the best thing for him. Like, I think to mitigate all those factors that we're talking about, that we know it's going to be a slow burn for him, the fact that he gets to play those games at the Bell Center could be a mitigating factor for him. And I hope for him, we don't cheer for teams, but I'm cheering for this player. I mean, I really hope for him it goes great and that he stays healthy and feels good with every game, not for what it means for the Canadiens or anything like that. Like, the guy has been through a lot in the last year, and it would just be such a fantastic story to see him walk into the lineup and make a difference right away, whether it's scoring or creating great chances or bringing the fans to their feet and just being able to receive that feeling that he was so excited about to come to Montreal for, that would revive not necessarily the career at the level that he expects it to be at, but his love and passion for the game. And Marty talked about it when he went out. We had one job here, and it was to get Patrik really excited and feel happy in our environment and feel at home here. And it was clearly happening. And then this injury hits. Like, what a punch in the gut and a knee on the knee. But man, I'm sitting there saying I hope it goes great for him, because that would be fun.
I can't wait to see him on the power play. Like, I can't wait to see him on the power play with a one-timer. And if you have him and Cole there, now all of a sudden the teams have to watch 2 players that can set up for the one-timer and score a goal. The power play, which is already doing really well this season at 20.8, by the way, it's dropped a little bit. It's a 15 now out of 32, but it's going to be even more lethal now by having Patrik Laine in the power play. And you know what? You're right. Patrik Laine's return comes at the right time for the Canadiens, because 5 straight games at home, 6 of their next 7 at home, 7 of their next 9 at home. Islanders tomorrow, Nashville on Thursday, Washington on Saturday.
No back-to-backs.
No back-to-backs in the next couple of weeks here. In 3 weeks from now, they'll have a back-to-back with the Detroit Red Wings Friday, Saturday. But you know what? Come to think of it, I'm so excited about his return, too. I'm going to see if I can score some tickets on Saturday night versus the Washington Capitals. All right, okay. It's an opportunity for me to talk to you about accident insurance solutions right now. You know, all insurance isn't created equal. You know where to find the right solution for you. Accident insurance. Accident doesn't sell insurance. They shop it for you to find the right product, right on the money, whatever your insurance needs, home, automobile, or business. Call 514-363-3636. Visit their website, www.accentassurance.com. And a shout out to Betway. Go all the way with Betway and get a free bet up to $200 if your first bet loses. Scan the QR code on the screen or click on the link in the details section to create an account. Redeem your welcome offer. Offers available only for new customers, and the terms and conditions apply. Offer not available in Ontario. Must be 18 years old and over, and please play responsibly. All right. I can't tell you how disappointed I was when I saw Hockey Canada release their roster for the World Juniors, and Michael Hage not on it. A guy who's, putting up real good points and a lot of nice goals and a lot of really highlight reel goals with Michigan as a freshman, and he's not on that team. But then again, if you're thinking of actually saying, well, he's not that good, only Montreal media overrates him and stuff like that. Did you see the players who are not on this list? Beckett Seneca, who went number 3 in the draft, is not on the team. Tija Ginla, who went 6, is not on the team. Yakubchuk and Parik, who went top 10 pick, they're not on the team. It's crazy. The amount of talent left off this team is crazy. But then again, look, I'm not going to pretend that I watch these guys play every game.
No, but it's a 19-year-old tournament. You know that the chances were slim that they're going to take kids out of the NCAA that are underage. Not underage, but under 19. But I will say this, if you're a Canadiens fan, okay, this has nothing to do with how good of a player or how not good of a player Michael Hage is. And I'm going to tell you, the Habs brass are justifiably excited about this guy. I ran into one of the people who works for them at a lower level, who's an important cog in the machine, who gets a chance to see him quite frequently, and said he brought him up. I was talking to him about Jacob Fowler, and he brought him up and said, Michael Hage, like this kid, you know, he's got that quality that you see with Laine Hudson, that quality you see with Ivan Demidov, the desire to make the difference on every shift. And I just think this was a really good story on draft day that has gotten better and better with every day that's passed. And if you want to know how good he is, if you haven't been paying close attention to Michael Hage and you've just been watching a few highlights that have filtered onto your social media feeds or even come to you on the algorithm, he's 9th in the NCAA in scoring. He is the top scoring freshman. There are, I think, 3 or 4 players who have more goals than him so far. And when you talk about 9th in scoring and 3rd or 4th in goals, almost all the guys that are ahead of him on the list have played more games. He suffered, I think it was an ankle injury at one point a little earlier this season, and still bounced back from it quickly. The future is very bright. He says his favorite player, I think I saw somewhere he said his favorite player is Jack Eichel. I see a lot of similarities in the way he plays the game. And if he's in the best place, you know, it sucks. You don't get to participate in the World Juniors. Maybe that'll change a year from now, or maybe you'll be playing for the Montreal Canadiens a year from now. But the best place for him is right where he is in Michigan, where he plays 2 games a week and is in the gym 5 days a week, building mass on what's already a pretty big frame. Yeah. This kid has something, and I think we're going to be seeing him in Montreal sooner than later. I don't know if it's going to be at the end of the year, but if that were to happen, it wouldn't shock me.
Yeah. I don't remember, by the way, the last time something like this happened. Seneca 3rd, drafted 3rd. Iginla drafted 6th. Yakimchuk drafted 7th.
It's not a problem if you win the tournament, I guess.
Patrik drafted 9th. And
it is the selection. It is the selection camp, and I'm not saying that you're going to see somebody come off the board that wasn't at selection camp and get named to the team, but I think it's happened before. I don't expect it to happen this time around, and it's pretty jarring. It's pretty shocking.
We haven't talked about him yet, but love Emil Heineman. I said it 1,000 times. Love Emil Heineman.
Well, it's a good time to talk about him because we got to talk about the 4 nations, right? Those rosters were submitted today. Yeah, and I'm not suggesting that he's going to be on Team Sweden, but he will be in the future if he keeps playing the way he's playing. Man, like the speed is unbelievable. He's one of the fastest players in the league, and that's supported in the edge data. The shot is unbelievable, and it's starting to go in the net because the confidence is growing. And those earlier chances that he got in the top 6 with the team that he wasn't necessarily able to capitalize on, you know, if they're not here right now, they're coming. Like he keeps playing this way, he will be bumped up the lineup. There's no question about it. So he's a great story so far. We'll see what happens with the other guys who are in the runnings for jobs at the 4 Nations tournament.
I remember saying last year that I was disappointed with Heineman when I saw him because we had heard about the tools and we had heard about the shot that he had an NHL shot. And a year ago, we didn't see it. And 1 year later, we're seeing that NHL shot. So I think it was Gary Galley who was praising him too on the Sportsnet broadcast on the weekend yesterday, basically saying that, you know, every line this guy's played on, he's played well. He just keeps on doing his job. So I've liked him a lot. You talked about the 4 Nations tourney. Once again, the lists are submitted. Mm-hmm. Everyone's trying to guess who's on the list. I haven't seen any leaks.
How the hell is that not going to leak before Wednesday?
It's definitely going to leak because once again, it's supposed to come out on Wednesday, December 4th. It will leak. Do you think Nick Suzuki is on Team Canada?
I don't think so, and I don't think it's anything to. I don't think it's any knock on Nick. This is a deep, great roster, as any Team Canada roster would be at the highest level. I think it comes down to role on the team, and you know, you look at the players who are at the bottom end fighting for it. Like one of the guys who I thought would have been a guaranteed lock on that team, who might have played his way off of it in the early part of this season, is Wyatt Johnson. You know, like he's had a rough start points wise with Dallas Stars, and he was so freaking good in the playoffs. That
they all do. I got Jason Robertson and Rupe Hintz in my pool. I mean, they're going to cost me my pool this year. I can't believe it. They're going to cost me the pool.
Tom Wilson is a name that has been associated with Team Canada for a long time. You look at the way the Capitals are playing and what his role has been there.
Hagel.
Brandon Hagel is definitely going to be on that team. Like that's not even a question for me. And more people would be talking about him if Anthony Cirelli wasn't scoring in every game he played, and if Nikita Kucherov and Braden Point were as great as they are, because honestly, he's had a fantastic start to the season. So he's on the team. I'm not sure what will happen with Zach Hyman if Wilson's there. Another guy that might have played his way off. I think Suzuki, for him to have played his way on, now I think Suzuki has 24 points in 24 games, which is very good. There was a portion when there was some real heavy scouting being done earlier this month where he was still putting up points, but he wasn't playing well.
Yeah.
And that might have hurt his chances as he was kind of in that race to the bottom end of that lineup. But I'll say this about Nick.
Yeah.
If he doesn't make this team, I still like his chances of making the Olympic team a year from now. And let's see how he finishes the season.
I agree with you on that. You know who's going to be on this team that I don't think should be? Not right now. Marchand.
Well, Marchand is locked into the team.
Correct.
He was one of the six guys.
He's one of the 6 guys that were chosen. So he's going to be on the team.
But it would be the greatest, most compelling story of this whole thing if Connor Bedard was left off the team and Macklin Celebrini was named to it. I don't see how Celebrini would be not in the conversation the way he's playing. But I doubt he'll make the team, and I doubt
he won't make
the team too. So we'll see. We'll see what they do. It's a tough choice, though. If you're picking at the bottom end of that lineup and you are preparing for the Olympics, because let's face it, this is an NHL tournament between 4 teams. It's not like everybody grew up dreaming to play at the Four Nations challenge that's being put together here, right? Like if you are preparing for the Olympics, you might want to have 1 or 2 players at the very bottom end of it that you know are going to be a part of that Olympic team that are going to carry the team. And maybe that keeps the door open to Nick. Either way, the decisions have already been made, so we'll find out soon.
I think Bedard's going to be on the team.
We'll see.
Every time he puts a Canada jersey on, he's clutch.
The biggest debate is obviously with Cole Caulfield, right, in the USA. And I know Canadiens fans probably have a hard time digesting that, knowing that he's 3rd in the league in scoring goals. And I had a conversation with Cole yesterday after the game, and he had a very mature response saying, no matter what happens, I've worked really hard to get there. And, but they have to choose a team based on what they think will be the best team. And, if I'm there or if I'm not, I'll be cheering either way. And if I'm not there, it's going to push me to try and become an even better player. And I love that from Cole. He's played really well.
He should be on the team. He deserves it. He should be on the team. He deserves it.
If you've watched him the last few weeks, he has played much better than when he was filling the net at the beginning of the season. He is really good at both. He's dangerous every time he touches the puck, but without it, he has been fantastic. And I'm going to say this. If you would have asked me 2 weeks ago with Cole Caulfield right at the top of the scoring list in the NHL in goals, if he was going to make this team, I would have said, I don't think so. But since then, JT Miller has checked himself out of the NHL for a little bit to take time to himself.
Yeah.
He's a guy that you would have locked onto the team. Chris Kreider is coming off an injury, has not played well enough in New York. He's a guy that would have been locked onto this thing to begin with.
Yeah.
Dylan Larkin was kind of on the bubble to begin with. Things haven't gone tremendously in Detroit one way or the other, so we'll see what happens with that decision. I wonder if the door is open to Cole now. Like, I wonder if the door opened up enough for him to have been named to that team that was submitted today by Bill Guerin. I know one thing when I was looking at all the submissions to that team, like all the projections, people were leaving Matthew Boldy off of it, and I was like, this guy is
I love Boldy.
100% going to be on this team.
Yeah.
Which I thought hurt Cole, given that Miller was still playing and that Kreider, given his body of work, inevitably could get there. Now that door is open, and we'll see if the USA made the decision to bring him. I think they should. If they didn't, I love Cole's attitude. And I think if they didn't, I'll say the same thing about Nick. Cole will be on the Olympic team. He will play his way onto that one.
Yeah. Did you want to have a final word on Demidov? Because you sent me something earlier today about Demidov.
Before we do say one more thing about Demidov. I'm going to just yes or no to you. Armia, Finland?
I think so.
Montreal, Canada?
No.
Who's going to be the goalies in Canada?
Bennington's going to be one.
Okay.
Well, his GM is the and I know it doesn't always work out that way because Yzerman didn't choose St. Louis.
Logan Thompson,
Aiden Hill. Like, you'd have to think that all three are ahead of Montembeault right now. No? You'd have to think that all three are ahead of Montembeault.
I would not choose Bennington over Montembeault ever. That's just me personally.
Yeah, I know, but
I don't know what Doug Armstrong's going to do, and we're going to find out soon enough. Maybe even before Wednesday.
His GM is the GM, and he won a cup.
So we agree. I think Armia will be there. Laine?
No.
I think Laine will be there.
You think Laine will be there?
Why not? Why don't you pick him? Go through the list of finished forwards. You're not going to take a chance and take.
Well, on paper he's there, but he hasn't played in a long time.
I know.
Yeah.
Okay, then let's put it another way. JT Miller, who's checked himself out, if he comes back, you don't think they'll have a contingency here that like they'd want him on that team?
Yeah,
like,
maybe.
I think if you're Finland, you look at a guy like Patrik Laine and say, how many guys do we have on this roster? That
on paper, he's top 6 on that team.
I think it's worth taking a flyer.
Yeah.
So I think he'll be there. Demidov. Okay. The fans were irate about this to be the beginning of the season. Try to give the situation the benefit of the doubt, knowing that, like, okay, he's in his first year in the KHL. He's going to have to prove himself, give himself an opportunity. Can't see how he hasn't done that through, 31 games now?
Yeah.
And, the situation hasn't changed. The coach doesn't want to play him. And, he hides behind the whole idea that it's this or that. For you Canadiens fans who are freaking out about this, I'm not worried about Demidov's development whatsoever because everything that's happening with him over there only pushes him closer to the Canadiens, and the sooner he gets here, the better. And I'm not talking about this year. I'm just saying he wanted to come over next year, and the way Russia's treating him right now pretty much guarantees it.
Yeah.
There's another factor here that I don't think anybody is like, I don't want to say anybody. There's plenty of people who've probably figured this out. I think the biggest reason they don't want to play Demidov is because they don't want him to torch it to a level where it looks bad that they've not been able to keep him. And that's what would happen if you upped his ice time to the level that he's earned, which is much more than he's getting, probably at least double what he's getting. So,
yeah, and also they're saying, well, let's invest in the development of players that are going to be here.
I know, but I think
the other guys aren't going to be here.
I think that's the general statement that a lot of people make in the assumption of why he doesn't get his ice time. But I think it's more the other thing. It's more that we know how good he is. And if we keep putting him on the ice and he torches it here, it's not going to look good on us that we couldn't hold on to him, that we couldn't convince him to stay here in the KHL for 1-2 more years. And I'm telling you, that's the way it goes over there. It was, people thought, oh, they're not invested in Alex Romanov's development. They didn't like the idea that they were going to have to let him go.
Yeah.
They didn't like that.
I look forward to seeing him. I'm going to pick up a couple of tickets when he's here next year. And in the meantime, we'll wait for him. Eric, enjoy the hockey game tomorrow night versus Patrik Laine, New York Islanders. We'll talk to you soon, my man.
Will do. Take care.
Cheers. All right, there you have it. Eric Engels of Sportsnet at sportsnet.ca. A shout out to Sammy's Gala on Saturday, April 5th. Check it out on all our social media platforms on how you can pick up tickets to this gala. It's a beautiful night out if you want to show up by yourself to support, with proceeds going to Cure SMA, or with your girlfriend, your wife, your other half, you name it, I'll be there. Agnello obviously will be there. The entire Cavallaro family will be there. We'll try and get Shane over there as well. And as many people from the Sick Podcast, we look forward to seeing you there. Help us find a cure to cure spinal muscular atrophy. There you have it, Sammy. God bless him. We look forward to seeing you there. In the meantime, we'll see you tomorrow night. Same time, same place, only this time after the Canadiens and the New York Islanders. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, please do so. And it's absolutely free. Tell your friends about it. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple. It's our way of feeling the love. And a shout out to Paul Montreal, PEAU Montreal.com. They have a game changer as far as hair loss is concerned. It's called TED. It's an ultrasound technology to get those follicles back in place. to boost the blood flow to your scalp. It's all natural, no needles, no pain. 98% success rate for ideal candidates. 2 locations, downtown Montreal and West Island. For a free consultation, jot down this number, and you can call them when during the daytime when they're open at 514-989-7328. For Shane Gaumont and Master Control, want to thank all of our sponsors once again: Energy Transportation Group, Bittt Tibi, Playground, Accent Insurance Solutions, and Betway. And special thanks to all of you for watching. Back tomorrow night after the Canadiens and the Islanders. Talk to you then. Cheers.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. Bittt, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.